Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPR Hints, here to discuss my potential plans for UCL Fantasy Match Day 3. As always, if you're able to like, share and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. So before looking ahead, I have to address the elephant in the room, and for me, that was the horror show that was Match Day 2. Everything that could have gone wrong pretty much did. Now, for those that follow my content on a regular basis, you'll know that I did contemplate wildcarding, even using the limitless chip in Match Day 2. And with hindsight, I would have scored a lot more than 32 points. So, assessing the damage, as it were, of course, Harry Kane was a potential doubt for Match Day 2. In the end, he started. Shock result for Aston Villa with a clean sheet win against Bayern Munich. Nothing for Harry Kane, so blank there. Then Gyökeres, which I thought was a reasonable fixture against PSV, albeit on the road. He blanked as well. Haaland was the captain for my team for the Tuesday match, and I just felt that 6 points wasn't enough against Bratislava, so I decided to just roll the captaincy into the second day. And then, yeah, ultimately put it on Bellingham, and it actually got worse. And yeah, didn't really offer much for my team. Yamal, super high ownership in UCL Fantasy, he blanked as well. And then got Serge Gnabry, he also blanked. So from the front line, that I should have just stuck with Haaland as the captain, just because the first day didn't go to plan. It just made sense to take a risk on captaincy, and ultimately it's backfired. Bellingham hasn't really been the same since his injury, and also has lacked that goal scoring form since Mbappe's arrived at Real Madrid. So, yeah, in some ways, I've got to really factor that in as well. Defense, surprisingly, was a mixed bag, but ultimately it was the goalkeeper, Di Gregorio, minus 3 points against Leipzig. And ironically enough, Juventus had a really good clean sheet record prior to the start of the UCL campaign. So I doubled down, as it were. Then had Cambiasso, who thankfully chipped in with an attacking return, albeit no clean sheet, which kind of, in some ways, absorbed the minus 3. But yeah, nothing for Hakimi against Arsenal, which is always a risk. Schlotterbeck did wonders for me in a 7-1 win with a return, and Kubasi with a it ain't much but honest work, 6 points there. So I really do need to overhaul this team based on the learnings from match day 2 especially. Again, match day 1 was just short of 100 and could have scored so much more had I just made a couple of tweaks before the deadline, but it is what it is. So what I'm going to do in this video is actually look at potential options with transfers. 2 free transfers available, but I might actually look at potentially wildcarding as well. So in order to justify that, I'd need to basically see how many transfers it is that ultimately that I'm going to be making. So looking at the players that I'd want to get rid of, yeah, Gluck, big disappointment. I'd get rid of him. Gonzalez, to be fair, was injured. I'll have a think about Gonzalez. Serge Gnabry, I'll get rid of him. Yamal, I'd keep. Bellingham isn't the player that I was hoping for, so I would want to potentially get rid of him as well. Onto the defence, of course, Gregorio's got the ban, have to get rid of him. Blaswich, I'd potentially keep, but I'd need to look for a rotating pair, as it were. Dedic, I'd want to get rid of him. Hakimi with the fixtures, PSV, Atletico, Bayern, I'd want to get rid of him as well. So this is screaming out for a wild card. Cambiasso, to be fair, the fixtures aren't too bad, so I'd probably keep him. And Kubasi at 4.5 is cut price. I'd potentially keep him as well. So in total, with the team as it is, there are like significant number of changes I'd make. The strikers up top, Haaland, good form. Kane, blip against Villa, albeit at the time of recording was an injury doubt, but wouldn't really want to sell him unless he was a major injury doubt. So looking at the options that are available. In fact, before we even do that, I want to go back to the FDR. So this FDR has been compiled by the Fantasy Football Pundit, found at UCL_Fantasy. So with the games as we have them from match day 3 onwards, that's my focus at the moment. I'm going to go all the way down because this has been sorted from match day 1. So a lot of these teams with red block games wouldn't consider any of these right now. From the bottom, is there any one that's catching my eye? Got the Red Star Belgrade and Bratislava fixtures here. So let's just see who they are for. That's for Girona and Monaco. Don't really fancy picking players from there at the moment. And just going further up, you'll see more green block games. So there are some tricky matches here as well. Again, due to the way the format is, you're not going to get like a row of green block games, as it were. So just gone further up. So the one match that has already caught my eye, Celtic at home, match day 3. It's Atalanta. They've got Stuttgart, Young Boys, and then Sturm Graz in 4 of the next 5. And then another one that catches my eye, Aston Villa. I've got Bologna at home, Bruges, Leipzig in 3 of the next 4. And then if we just go further along, Man City, Sparta Prague, Feyenoord in 2 of the next 3. So there are some options to potentially consider here. And then just going further up, again, this was sorted at the time of the FDR starting from match day 1. So yeah, some of those matches, Real Madrid away, Juventus, Bayern Munich, if we just go across and confirm those teams. So it's Dortmund, Stuttgart, and Barcelona. Got some tricky games in 3, so need to factor that in as well. And then AC Milan, surprisingly, Bruges at home, got Bratislava, and then Red Star Belgrade in 3 of their next 4. So that's food for thought there as well. I've got to see if I can make it work. Again, I'll try and do a mock wildcard, and if I can justify it, then I ultimately might even activate the wildcard as well. So in terms of player selection now, in terms of the key misses that I have in my team, Florian Wirtz, 7.6 million now, 25 points in those first 2 matches. I think it's a no-nonsense pick for me to get him in. And then in terms of the other players that I could potentially look at, I'm going to just focus for the time being on 3 particular teams I've called out for the green block games as well. So Man City, Milan, and Atalanta, just to see the kind of players I could get here with the favourable fixtures ahead for those teams. And then we'll also factor in other teams as well. So just sort it by points at the moment. So Lookman has had a great start so far, 17 points in 2, and then generous run of games. So I think Lookman from Atalanta could be a differential for sure, 6% owned. Rico Lewis definitely for Man City, who in some ways was considered to be a rotation risk. But again, with Rodri's injury and also a potential changing of the guard at Man City, he might get a few more minutes in both the Champions League matches as well as the Premier League as well. At 4.6 million for a Man City defender, you can't really go wrong. Also with that potential of playing in a slightly advanced role, as it were, for a defender. And just looking at some other options here, you got former Arsenal player here as well, Kolasinac, so 4.6 million, 17 points in the first 2, generous run of games. I think I would consider him in a potential wildcard draft as well. So I've got 2 from Atalanta. I think the only triple up I would probably consider here would probably be for Man City. So in comes Foden. Started off slow, but then he's finally managed to pick up a few points. So as it stands right now, again, haven't activated the wildcard as of now, but I've got 5 million to spend on a goalkeeper. So if we just go to goalkeepers only and we look at all teams, again, I'll be quite relaxed on the kind of goalkeepers available. Kobel actually does catch my eye because of the generous run of games that Dortmund have. Again, exclude Real Madrid, you've got match day 4, matchday 5 potential starter there as well. And then my current goalkeeper is Blaswich, who I'd need to rely on. So to be fair, reasonable fixture in 3, and then PSG in 5. So I think, you know what, that could probably work with Cabell. I did have this thing whereby Cabell was one of my go-to goalkeepers last season, but then now costs extra 0.5 after the run to the Champions League final last season. So going to have to pay extra for him, but he has proven his worth, as it were. So with this, as it stands right now, triple Man City, we've got double Barcelona, double Atalanta, and double Dortmund. And I just want to sort it now by all positions and also look at, just get this here, see who are the missing pieces. So again, I've got the highest owned players in Yamal, Haaland, Wirtz, and Kane. But then I've not just gone for a heavy template team, I've gone for a lot of differentials as well. In terms of the other misses, got no Arsenal cover at all. And looking at Arsenal, they've got Shakhtar Donetsk in the next match, then Inter, Sporting, and Monaco. Some tricky games. Probably wouldn't want an Arsenal defensive asset in those matches. And then I've got no Liverpool cover either, with Leipzig, and then Leverkusen, Real Madrid. So probably could get away with Liverpool defensive cover as well. Again, my focus here is what kind of wildcard can I construct with those that have shown some initial form and also those that have a good run of upcoming games. And that's why I'm geared towards this smattering of Man City, Atalanta players. And I've just realised I filtered Milan. I've not picked a single AC Milan player. So let's just see if I can make it work with an AC Milan player as well. So let's give them some consideration as well. Of course, in the Champions League last season, they were in a very tough group with Dortmund and Newcastle United, as well as PSG. So, yeah, the players aren't really owned by many at the moment. And in terms of their highest points scorer, just bring him up, 9 points. So 7.5 million. He's listed as a midfielder. Of course, I wouldn't get rid of Yamal for him. I would favour Florian Wirtz for him. Gonzalez, 6.6 million. I'm not sure how, I'll get rid of Gonzalez. I don't know how serious his injury is at the time being. So could I make it work? Oh, you got Loftus-Cheek as well. But I'm not sure if he's in a advanced role for this AC Milan team. So we've got Fofana as well. Yeah, I'm not going to get any forward. So it'd literally be a defender potentially. So who can I flip out here? I'd say with Juventus, let's get rid of Cambiasso actually. So can I make it work with Pulisic and a defender? So looking at their defenders, in terms of the highest owned as well, Pavlovic, who didn't play in match day 2, not sure why. Got Emerson, who if I just get this up here, Emerson played in match day 2, a full match, albeit in match day 1 he didn't, so that bit of a question mark there. So if I go to Pulisic, just clear the filter, I'd have to go for a £4.8 million defender at the very most. So Pulisic, Lookman, and Foden, Yamal and Wirtz, a very unorthodox midfield setup. And just looking at the defensive options as well, I don't think there's really any defender I could consider. You got Hernandez, Tomori. Yeah, there's not, again, because of the price changes, I couldn't consider these players who I could have potentially have gotten. I think Tomori would really be the only other option here with the fixtures in mind as well. I mean, let's just get Tomori in. And I'd have to downsize one of these players. Might potentially even have to be the goalkeeper. So again, just food for thought on the options I could get. Very different looking team, again, with form and fixtures in mind. And I did say, in fairness, form, maybe one of the reasons why I overlooked Milan was they had 2 tough games. And in each of those games, they conceded as well. So, you know what, I would like Tomori, but then I need a defender as well that I could potentially utilize with a good run of games. Is Pulisic the be all or end all? I think that's something that I'd need to factor in as well, because he had a different role altogether at Chelsea, at Milan. I think he's been scoring a healthy number of goals. If I'm not mistaken, he actually scored like more than 10 goals last season. He's in goal scoring form. So, I will stick with Pulisic in this draft due to the form and fixtures at hand. I would ideally like to keep Tomori, but let's just go for all teams and let's just see who I can get. Let's just see who's been racking up the points. So we've got a few options here. This is Sporting's defender, but yeah, there's no real options there. We did talk about Aston Villa as well in the FDR, Bologna, Bruges, and Red Bull Leipzig. So looking at their options, in fact, if I go to Aston Villa in particular as well, and I've got no doubt you might try activating a wildcard. You could probably make it work with these players because of price changes might have gone to your favour, but in my case, I haven't. Just get Luka Dean in, I guess. There we go. So in this instance, Kobel and Blaswich, just checking their days as well, just making sure they don't play on the same day. So on the 23rd, and Kobel plays on the 22nd by chance. So didn't plan that, but that's good that I've got the goalkeeping rotation. And then defense, we know with Barcelona, they've got mixed fixtures, but they're not like the worst in the world. And then nice overlap there with Aston Villa. And then Man City, you could say they're relatively fixture proof in the matches ahead, so makes sense to triple up. And then Dortmund, again, bookended between Real Madrid and Barcelona, a couple of nice games. And we've already talked about Atalanta and their generous run of games. So it makes sense having defensive cover from them and also attacking cover. And yeah, the midfield, very different, but with Pulisic, I think he scored 5 goals in 7 in Serie A this season. Foden, who has, shall we say, it's been a slow but mixed start for him. And the strikers I wouldn't touch at all. So there we go. In this hypothetical wildcard draft, I've got a nice mix of players that are in form, as well as those that have a good run of upcoming games. And yeah, at the time of recording, haven't activated my wildcard just yet, but because I scored so poorly in match day 2, I might just go all out and activate the wildcard. So that's something that I do need to consider. But yeah, this is not going to be something that I could just fix with 2 free transfers, purely because I've got a goalkeeper that's been sent off. So I need to address that. And then on top of that, the defense, I've overhauled it, overhauled the midfield. The only thing I've not touched is my strike force. And I think that is enough to justify using the wild card with, in total, 4 out of 5 midfielders potentially being replaced, 3 out of 5 of the defense, and 1 out of 2 of the goalkeepers. So I think that would justify using the wild card. So I'm just looking at any other misses that I've potentially got. So in terms of fixtures specifically, as I mentioned with the FDR as well. In fact, I'll bring up the FDR once again, and I'll just go across to the teams that I've called out in particular. So it really is between picking AC Milan's players from match day 3 as differentials, And then I mentioned Atalanta as well from match day 3. And I mentioned Aston Villa from match day 3. And then last but not least, I called out Man City. There we go. As another option to factor in. So yeah, going forwards on a wildcard, if I was to activate it, I'm clearly going to be having to look at the upside, taking risks that I wouldn't have to ordinarily make. Could I use the limitless chip in match day 3? I still could. I wouldn't rule it out. If I can justify it, I might even make a video on that as well. But I think with all things considered, you generally would want to use a wild card to overhaul the team. And without a doubt, pretty much the bulk of my team does require an overhaul. So I think that's where I'm looking at in terms of my direction of travel. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Am I wildcarding too early with all things considered with this new Champions League format? Is it the right choice? And what are you doing? Do you think you can get by with 2 free transfers? Are you also going to wildcard or potentially use the limitless chip? As always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Take care and all the best.